Hey guys, welcome to my first quick look video on Audi's facelifted e-tron GT. I'm sure you'll agree that the pre-facelift car is one of the prettiest cars on the road today, and thankfully they haven't changed too much with this updated version. What they have changed is the lineup. Before there was an e-tron GT and an RS e-tron GT. Now the base model is an S e-tron GT. We then have the RS e-tron GT like before, and this flagship RS e-tron GT Performance. This particular car is in a new colour called Bedford Green. Audi RS name all of their colours after racing circuits, and well, Bedford is a local circuit to me and a circuit I'm very familiar with. So I like the name and I really like the colour, especially in this beautiful morning light in the south of Spain. Before we look at the changes on the outside and the inside, let's just look at a few facts and figures regarding the new three models. So the base S model has 680 horsepower, 740 newton meters of torque. It will do a claimed 0 to 62 in 3.4 seconds, and it has a range, a claimed range of 611 kilometers, which is about 380 miles. That makes it more powerful and just as fast as the outgoing flagship RS e-tron GT. And I've driven that car a number of times and there wasn't once where I thought this is too slow. We then move up to the RS e-tron GT, 856 horsepower and 865 newton meters of torque. That has a claimed 0 to 62 time of 2.8 seconds. So we're way below 3 seconds now. The claim range for that car is 601 kilometers, so it's lost 10 kilometers. Let's call it 375 miles. So still reasonable, but that is a claim range. And as with so many electric cars on the road today, they don't tend to get anywhere near that WLTP claimed range. But even if we knock a little bit off that, we're still looking at around 300 miles in everyday use most of the time of the year. And 300 miles is a lot better than the old cars circa 200 miles. So I'll keep my fingers crossed for that and looking forward to testing it. If 856 horsepower isn't enough, don't worry, because Audi Sport have you covered. This flagship RS e-tron GT Performance produces 925 horsepower and 1,027 newton meters of torque. It will do a claimed 0 to 62 in 2.5 seconds, which I think is F1 territory in terms of acceleration. And it has a claimed maximum range of 594 kilometers, so about 370 miles. So a little bit less, but you're getting more performance for that. I've got no idea who is going to need this kind of performance, but if you want it, you now can buy it, providing you have the money. Talking about pricing, well, I don't have any confirmed UK prices because it's the beginning of June, way before the launch in the UK. But in Germany, looks like they're going to start at 126,000 euros for the S. Then we're looking at 147.5 for the RS, the regular RS. And then we're looking at just over 160,000 euros for the flagship performance version. Although I'm sure there's a few options that you can tick to bring that price up even higher. It'll be interesting to see what those prices do, because I know the current e-tron GTs and RS e-tron GTs, brand new cars, are getting massively discounted in main dealers because they're just not selling that well. Right, let's go through some of those updates, starting around the front end, where you can see there's completely new design bumper, and the RS cars have this new, let's call it an L element on the outside of the bumper. The base S version has a more traditional looking Audi front end, or vent if you like. They've also added the new design Audi rings, which I think look really good on this car. In fact, I think those rings look really good on all of the models apart from the A3 family, where they just stick out a little bit like a pimple. Whereas on this, they look really good. They look really modern. Something I'm not so keen on with this particular car is this carbon effect. It's a package and an optional extra. I really don't like it. It reminds me of what Lamborghini came out with about 5-6 years ago I think it's really tacky. Looks like it belongs in a kitchen from the 90s, but thankfully you don't need to spec that carbon on your e-tron GT. It is everywhere. It's around the front end, it's on the door mirrors, it's down the sills, it's around the back end, and as we'll find out once you jump inside, it's also on the interior. But I get that everyone has different tastes, but for me, especially on this spec car, it's a very classy looking car. It doesn't need that tacky carbon on it. Now we're along the side of the car, where there haven't been too many visual changes. In line with the rest of the Audi lineup, we have the model designation on the B pillar there, which I really like. It's a nice little touch. It's quite subtle branding. Really nice wheel design, because remember, they're chasing efficiency. And unfortunately, as with so many modern cars and wheel design, they all look quite ugly. But these look really good. They look very similar to the wheels that are on, let's say, the RS6 Performance. I really like them. And I definitely think if you're buying one of these, you need to option those wheels, because they make the overall car look really, really good. And while we're talking about the wheels, let's quickly touch upon the heavily revised suspension. Apparently, they've almost eliminated a lot of the ducking and diving that you used to get on the pre-facelift model. It was something that I experienced the first time I drove that car at the UK launch up in Scotland. When you really pushed it hard and you braked hard and you accelerated hard, it was just doing this all the time. It was on its arse and it was on its nose. So this new setup apparently gets rid of the majority of that. It's also a lot more stable in the corners. I can imagine that it feels, and I'm hoping it feels, a lot more like Porsche's Taycan, which this car obviously shares a chassis and a lot of components with, which isn't a bad thing. And once we get around the back of the car, well, most of the upper part of it is unchanged aside from the new badges. But once we get down below the bumper to the diffuser, well, this is all new. We have this reflector element in the center of the diffuser, which seems to be design language now for a lot of the Audi lineup. And we have these genuine air channels that actually do allow air to flow through them. I'm not sure if I prefer this look to the pre-facelift, but maybe once again, this forged carbon look is just putting me off a little bit. I think just looks a little bit. The last thing to talk about is charging speeds. It's now up to 320 kilowatts, which is 70 kilowatts up on the pre-facelift car. And not only can you charge it at a higher speed, but you can charge it at a faster speed for more of the battery range. I forget the exact facts and figures, but faster charging is always a bonus. Before we jump inside, I wanted to show you a cool feature that this facelifted e-tron GT has. Something that I saw on Audi's flagship A8 a couple of years ago, and it's really useful for cars that sit very low, like the e-tron GT. So we'll open the door, watch the suspension. How cool is that? It takes you by surprise the first time, but obviously you get used to it after that. When you jump inside and close the door, it starts to lower again. As much as that air suspension does help you a little bit getting in and out of your e-tron GT, as we talked about on the outside, this is fundamentally a Taycan chassis, and therefore we're left with the Taycan B-pillars, which make it very difficult to get in and out of the front, especially if you're tall like me. I'm 6'4". The door opening is very small, and this B-pillar sits a long way forward. Once you're in, it's okay, but getting in and out is difficult, as is getting in and out of the back. I think that's one of the e-tron GT's biggest downfalls, is the rear cabin's not that big considering how large it is on the outside, and also the boot is not that big. Anyway, let's get on to talking about changes and updates in the interior. First thing that stares me in the face, quite literally, is this new double flattened wheel, which looks okay, definitely looks more modern, feels nice. This one's clad in Alcantara, or Dynamica, I think Audi call it. We got a new RS button down here that can cycle through all of the available modes. We have a boost button down here, just in case your 900 and whatever it is horsepower isn't enough. But my concern with this new wheel are these haptic buttons and how close they get to the rim of the wheel. With my big hands, well, I'm actually touching about 3 buttons on each side, and that's just sitting here sort of gently holding the wheel. I'm sure if I was pushing on, I'm definitely going to be pressing some of these buttons, very similar to the original wheel in the Mark 8 Golf and Golf R, etc. So I think that is a big no-no, and I can't see that that's going to work, and that's a bit disappointing, but I hope that I'm wrong. Everything else in here is pretty much standard affair. I think they're new graphics up there on the dashboard. Got this horrible carbon on the inside as well. I just can't see many people liking that. I think an Audi customer has a lot more taste than a Lamborghini customer, and that just doesn't belong in an Audi, but maybe I'm very wrong. Driving position has never been brilliant in the e-tron GT because although the car is very low, we've got the batteries underneath, so the seat somehow manages to feel like it's quite high. I think because the headlining and the roofline is very low, so I feel like I'm sitting way too high. But aside from that, everything else ergonomically is really nice. We've got buttons, etc., for all of the climate control and the heated seats, which is a good thing. Am I impressed with the update? Yes. Do I think it's going to sell really well? Probably not in today's world, today's climate of electric cars, especially high-end performance electric cars like this. I know Audi have really struggled to shift the pre-facelift car. I'd say it's one of their biggest lemons, if you like, and it's a shame because they've invested a lot of time and money into this car, but as with so many EVs, especially the high-end stuff, it's just a bit of an uncertain market in the UK, and I'm guessing most of Europe. So let's see. I look forward to driving one, seeing what it's like, maybe even taking one out on track, because it sounds like they've done a lot to the suspension, which is going to make it an absolute rocket ship, at least over 1 lap. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this first look video. I'll see you at another one very, very soon. Cheers.